So hello all. Thanks for coming in. Heidi here from Rain Country. God is good all the time. So today I thought it would be fun to come back to the topic again. The videos I'm linking to are talking about some things like replacements for foil, replacements, in the kitchen for plastics. And then obviously there's all the cloth versus paper things. And so I wanted to go over some of that, some of the things that I do so that I don't have to be dependent on foil and, throwaway single-use items. But that doesn't mean that your single-use items don't have their place. And I wouldn't not keep foil stocked up. I do keep a good amount of foil on hand because it does definitely have its place. I just don't want to be dependent on it. I do keep plastic wrap on hand because it does have its place, even though I very rarely use it. And I keep paper products, single-use paper products on hand. Why? Because they have their place. So as much as I do like to talk about like cloth for whether it be for toilet paper replacement, paper towel replacement, tissue replacement, feminine napkin replacement, diaper replacement, it doesn't mean that having those things on hand in their paper form don't have their place. Here's why it's still a good idea to keep some paper towels on hand, to keep toilet paper on hand, even if you've switched completely to cloth or a bidet or both, or some other way to clean yourself with, or you've switched entirely to cloth feminine napkins or cloth diapers or whatever, okay, cloth table napkins. Having that stuff on hand could be very, very beneficial in many ways. So one of those being, let's talk about if there is some kind of event. Let's say you have a main break. Let's say you're in city water and you have a main break and you have no water, but you've got a bunch of clothes to wash. And maybe you're out of your cloth wipes or your cloth diapers or your, whatever that use cloth to replace. And you're just getting ready to wash some clothes and you don't have any water, or your electricity goes out and you can't run your washing machine and you don't have another way to wash. You're going to be glad you have those paper things on hand. The same thing goes with dishes. So though typically I'm not going to use paper dishes, even for big gatherings here at the house, I do keep paper dishes on hand because we do barbecues down at the other piece of property. There's really no good way to wash dishes and stuff down there. And who's going to want to be hauling dirty dishes back? Yes, we're going to use paper in that case. I do try to look for the most natural ones, though, not the ones with all the printed flowers and the glossy whatevers. Try to find the most natural paper stuff that we can use. But yes, we keep those paper dishes on hand, but the same thing goes even back at the house. What if here something similar happened? We didn't have access to water to wash those dishes with. I mean, I always wash dishes by hand, so electricity wouldn't be a problem. And we can heat water on our wood stove or even on a camp stove if I want hot water or whatever. We have other ways to heat water. What if for some reason, maybe it's that time of the year where maybe our water tanks are low? That very, very rarely happens even in the midsummer, but just because of the great amount of rain we get. But let's say our water tanks are low, so we don't have our rainwater collection. The city water's out for whatever reason. Having those paper dishes is going to be handy because who wants all their dirty dishes consistently building up with no real good way to wash them? Now, I don't think I'd ever be here at the house without a way to wash the dishes just because of our rainwater collection. It would be a very, very slim to none chance that we wouldn't have one or the other, the city water or the rainwater. It's very, very slim. Same thing with power sources. We'd always have some kind of power source, but you just never know what can happen. And so that's why I see the single-use throwaway items as being a good thing to have on hand. It doesn't mean you have to stock high up on this stuff, but just having some of this on hand. Or like when I do have dinners here at the house and I want to send someone home with something, and I don't necessarily trust them to get my dishes back to me in a timely manner, if at all, then, I like having the plastic wrap or something and some paper dishes that I can wrap the stuff up and send it home. So they can just throw that stuff away and I don't have to worry about getting it back. Because it was funny because one of my boys, I kept sending stuff home with him in glass dishes with lids. And I was like, man, what is happening to all my little glass dishes? And one day he brings something back. He brings something to me in these glass dishes. I'm like, oh, good. My dishes. I've been wondering what happened to them. And he goes, oh, I thought those were mine. Anyway, it's like, no, those are my glass dishes. That's what I use to store food in. So I don't have to use plastic wrap and plastic throwaway stuff. And with that in mind, in order to replace some of those little cheap plastic whatevers that are single use items that people will store their food in or using plastic wrap, that's one of the things I do. I have glassware. I have a couple, I have the glassware brand, the Glass Lock. I also have a Rubbermaid brand that, where they're glass, but they have their own plastic lid, BPA free. But typically that's not going to touch the food anyway, so don't worry about that too much. That's typically what I'm going to use to store food in the fridge with, or even mason jars. So that's just a few ideas. And as I mentioned in one of the videos I have linked to down below, I cover a lot of that. I think it's reducing plastics in the kitchen and, ways that I go about that. And I bring up like the silicone bags in at least one of them, the silicone covers, or how you can use your plates. Like I find my Corelle plates all seem to have bowls that they fit over perfectly. And if you typically I'll put them face up, because then the bottom part of the plate actually kind of seats down into the bowl quite nicely, so it's not going to slide around. But then there's also, now these are plastic. When I bought them initially, I thought they were silicone because I was looking for silicone, but I do still use these. But they're reusable. So some of you who have bought these, if you didn't see my little short or the this and that I did on that, if you bought these kind of reusable zip lock bags for freezing, like I'll use the gallon size ones for freezing blackberries and grapes in. Yes, they're plastic, but sometimes you got to do what you got to do. And but then after you've used them once or twice, you find that you can't zip them back up again. It's almost impossible. It's like it won't line up or something. Even this one's a little tough. All you got to do, I learned this from one of my subscribers that commented, put a little bit of oil, any kind of food grade oil right in there, a little avocado, a little coconut oil, whatever, right on the zipper. You just need, even if you just put a little on your finger and rub it on there, then you'll just find it's like, it works again. Yay. Even though, but just a few seconds before that, it was near impossible to get it to zip up. That was a game changer, because I was thinking, am I going to have to throw these bags out? Because I still like to use them, even though I tried it. The silicone's going to be a little safer. Silicone's expensive and it's heavier and it does take up more room. And I have a lot of these other bags like this, and I'd hate to toss them. And something like that takes up a lot less room than glass. And sometimes using glass in the freezer, you can do it. You got to be careful. Same thing with mason jars. But something like that, you can usually put a lot more of that in your freezer. And that's why I say even plastic can have its place, as much as we try to reduce as much of that as possible. A few other things, obviously you have like some other paper items, cups, paper towels. I mentioned that. For paper towels, replacement, I have for tissue replacement, both. So facial tissues, I think I have a couple of boxes of facial tissues around here that I only kept on for the sake of when I was teaching dance, and you have little girls with runny noses almost every day. There's at least one of them. Then, that's what the paper tissues were for. But for me, t-shirt rags. So old t-shirts that got holes, stains, or whatever, you don't wear them anymore, you cut them up, t-shirt rags. We have massive pile of t-shirt rags, and I like having a massive pile of them. So every old t-shirt gets cut up for rags. This also makes great replacement for paper towels. But I still keep paper towels on hand for the same reason as mentioned before. Or if it's something where, well, I have enough t-shirt rags, I could probably do this and not worry about it. But if it's something where it's a really, really greasy mess, and I'd rather not use my t-shirt rags that I like to wash and reuse, then I might resort to the paper towels. But generally speaking, they rarely get used. But I still like having them on hand. So I don't stock massively on paper towels. I keep a package on hand. And it might take me a whole year or so to go through a single roll, but I have them. So I bought 100% cotton burp cloths for paper towel replacements. There you go. So are those, hey Deb, are those like a terry cloth kind of thing? I've never bought burp rags. I've always had, my mom made some for Ryan when he was first born. She sewed up a bunch. And then, I also, since I was doing cloth diapers, I had bought both the pre-folded kind and the big gauzy kind. They're like a big, massive square. Well, the burp rags that my mom made were just not big enough for Ryan. Because when he was going to spit up, it was always a massive amount. It didn't matter if I was nursing him or it didn't matter what I was giving him. It was always a lot. So I liked those big gauzy diapers, those big, huge ones. Those are what I use for burp rags. Because you had to wear a tent with that child. People would say, I'm like, you're going to need this because he's probably going to spit up. What I learned to do with him, by the way, was not burp him right away. Give him time to digest a little bit and then he'd be fine. But if you pick him up and start doing it like, oh, you're supposed to burp him right after they're done. No, not with him. Don't. He'll lose most of his food. Because I think he'd get like these big air. I don't know. That's just the way it was. And so I would say, here, you're going to need this. No, it'll be fine. A little spit up. You don't understand. It's not a little. It's pretty much most everything he ate if you're not careful. I've actually used brown paper bags for let's say, absorbing grease, and even newspapers, depending on what I'm using it for. I don't use the newspapers for food, but I'll use the newspapers for maybe either cleaning up a greasy mess or like when I'm treating the top of my wood stove, I'll use newspapers for that. Because I'm going to throw them in the fire, and that way I don't have to worry about greasing up the rags and then trying to get all the grease out. Instead of cooking anything with foil, using an aluminum, then it's always I do. Here's where I like having aluminum on hand is I do use it in the bottom of my toaster oven. Because I use my toaster oven more than my big oven when it comes to using an electric oven. So I like to keep some down in there because it makes it a lot easier to clean that out. And then once in a rare occasion, I have a piece that I may have to throw on top of something I'm baking. And I just keep reusing that same piece. And that is just, if it looks like it's browning too fast, turn the heat down, may throw that on top, but I know it needs to bake. But I very rarely do that. When it comes to things that need to be covered when they're baked the whole time, then I have several different types of casserole dishes that have their own lids. So glass lids, all of them have glass lids. So I have like the Farberware, and I show this in one of those videos down below, stainless steel pan. It's more like a casserole dish. It's round, but it's bigger than like the Corelle glass ones. But I'll use those Corelle ones with their own lids, anything like that. So I do not have to cover it with foil if it's something that needs to be covered when it's baking. Or also, I almost always forget to mention the enamelware that came with my solar ovens. So I have those too, and they have their own lids. I do a lot of cooking in that. I try to usually reserve those for only using with my solar oven because the enamelware does wear out. It kind of chips and then it starts getting rusty and then it gets a hole and then eventually I have to throw it out. So I try to reserve that just for using with the solar oven because they're black, but they're not heavy, so they're going to heat up quicker and they're going to stay hot, because of the color and because of the the thinner aspect of it than maybe cast iron. So obviously for, dishes, the reusable kind, duh. You guys know what those are. They're going to be your glass, china, your stoneware, whatever you typically use. For just like, plates, I have mostly Corelle. I love Corelle because it withstands my harsh treatment pretty well. And then glasses for cups, obviously. That's easy stuff. I mean, at least that's something most people have it entirely replaced with single-use items, unlike everything else. And just like I said before, it's funny how upset people get about certain reusable items that are cloth. And they'll get really upset about it, like angry. It's like, why are you getting angry? I'm just sharing with you what I'm doing. And I think it's because we've done the disposable thing for so long when it comes to those that people just think that's it's uncivilized, or they just simply forget the fact that cloth was originally what was used for most of these things. Cloth table napkins, cloth feminine napkins, cloth diapers, cloth wipes. So there was a lot of other things people used as well, but cloth was one of the big ones people used, and they washed them and reused them. And then paper came along, convenience came along and started replacing all those things a little at a time, till that's all that people know. And now it's like they can't cloth. People ever use cloth? People did use cloth? Really? Oh, that's horrible. That's horrible. Now what you're seeing is people are now trying to switch back to the old ways of doing things, and yet it gets people really upset. Well, I think it's a great thing, but I still think it's a good idea to keep the single-use convenient stuff on hand. I think it's an incredibly good idea. You just never know when you may need those things. And so I'm not telling anyone that you're wrong, you're bad if you have plastic wrap and aluminum foil and toilet paper and paper towels. Obviously not. And on top of the fact, you also have to start somewhere. If you're trying to make those changes to be more self-sufficient and more frugal, no one in their right mind, I'll put it that way, or that's not so entirely full of pride, is going to expect you to be exactly like them and do everything they're doing, even though it took them years and years, little steps at a time, and getting over certain squeamishness to be able to make all those changes. I, for one, don't expect people to do that because I know how long it took me to make all these changes. Now, the funny thing with cloth diapers, I always knew before I had kids, that's what I was going to do. I always knew that. That was already set in stone with me. I'd already dealt with cloth diapers, working in a daycare and different things. That I wasn't worried about it. It was all those other things that took quite a number of years to realize that, oh, I could be doing cloth with this. Oh, can I handle that? That sounds really scary. That sounds really nasty. But eventually I made the switch. But again, we still keep a good amount of toilet paper on hand. And be it for guests or be it for Patrick, who hasn't made that switch to cloth. But that's okay because just what I've done alone has saved us so much money in toilet paper. And then, and then you get the people that want to argue. It's like, well, that doesn't really save money because you got to figure in your electricity. Yep, done that. Been there, done that. You could do it yourself. And honestly, there's something too, is that for each individual person, that cost could be very different. Maybe some people's electricity and water, the cost for electricity and water is a lot more than maybe for us. So cloth is risky though, but you know what? So is toilet paper. It's all risky, no matter how you look at it. Like people talk about all the chemicals that are in toilet paper, even without the colored toilet paper like they used to make back in the 70s and I think 80s. I don't know when it was they stopped making them. You're taking a risk no matter what. You're taking a risk if you're only going to depend on toilet paper and then one day the store is out of toilet paper. because everybody stocked up on it, because there was a run on toilet paper and you don't have any. That's taking a risk. You can always go with a bidet. You can put the expense in. There's cheap forms of bidets. But anyway, I didn't mean to get back into that particular topic. But I've heard people say cloth is risky. No, it's not. Not if you wash it right. And it doesn't even have to be that hard. And anything, if you're worried about it being sterile, can be boiled. You can have a special pot just for boiling. I don't do that. I'm not worried about it. You can hang things in the sun, and if you get sun, unlike here, the sun will sanitize cloth. So it's not anything to be afraid of. But again, I'm not here to judge or tell anyone that's what they should do. Everyone should be looking at options that are going to work best for them, but also not be afraid, even if they've made that switch to complete, cloth or non-paper, non-foil, paper items, whatever. Did I already say that? Even if you've made that complete switch and you're not using any single-use items, it's still a wise thing to have those on hand, whatever it is. And again, there's no judgment on my part. And I think this is where people get angry. You'll have people that will make excuses, and maybe their excuses are entirely valid. I would understand that. But then on the other hand, you have people that make excuses because they simply don't want to do it because they're afraid. They're afraid of the work involved. They're afraid of the ick factor. Believe me, I get that. I was there too. Even though for some reason the diaper thing never scared me. It was everything else. Well, not the table napkins. That was just funny to me that it took me so long to go, why do I keep buying paper napkins when I can just easily make table napkins out of all this fabric I have on hand? Don't get yourself so caught up in being, well, I'm never, ever going to use single-use items that you don't keep some of that stuff on hand, because there can and will be situations that are going to come up that you're going to wish you had that stuff on hand. Some of it's going to be, it will just be convenience. Sort of like me not wanting to worry about getting my dishes back when I need them and use them a lot. So let me send this food home with someone in something that's, that they can throw away, and I don't have to worry about getting it back. There's all kinds of good reasons why you can keep that stuff on hand and not feel guilty about it. And if you're running low, go ahead and buy some more foil. Go ahead and buy some more plastic wrap. Go ahead and buy another package of toilet paper and paper towels and even disposable diapers for your babies or grandbabies if you need to keep them on hand, because you just never know when that's going to be important to have. There can be a good balance. Don't feel guilty about what you choose to do one way or the other. If you're all cloth, don't let people make you feel bad or dirty or gross because you're doing what you do. Because I get enough of that on my end ever since the cloth wipe video came out. People just get so mad and they want to just cuss at you and say the meanest things. But really what it is they're mad because you made a choice to do something that they don't like. So don't let those people get you down. But also, if you haven't made that switch, don't let people who are doing that kind of thing like me get you down either or make you feel guilted into doing it. You've got to do everything one step at a time. And just remember, there's benefits to both sides of things. We live in a society where people want to make everybody feel guilty because they're not doing things the way they're doing it. And that shouldn't be the way it is. Am I the only one that has rewash rags and also throwaway rags? Oh, probably no, you're not actually, Linda. I know some people that have rags that they will throw away. And I actually do, like, that's the reason why, I was going to say this earlier, this is the reason why I like having a massive pile of the t-shirt rags. And I don't throw away old t-shirts, because what's going to happen is I may have to use these for grease. Of course, I can, a good hot boil and with dish soap will get the grease out. But a lot of times Patrick uses those t-shirt rags out in his shop for things that just won't wash out no matter what you do. So those get thrown away. They have to, and that's fine. So that's why I like having a big pile of them on hand. And even like dish rags, maybe those dish rags were once hand towels that were getting kind of wore on the corner and got cut down in dish rag size, and then those start getting holes in them. Well, those might be the thing I use for that final use to clean up the grease out of something that where I don't want to use a t-shirt rag or paper towel, and then that gets thrown away. So anyway, love you all, and I just want to say again, thank you. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart. Thank you for everything. So I hope you all have a great rest of your day. Take care and God bless.